how the physics of resonance shapes reality. What is resonating and why? That's the ultimate question of reality. The more that we get into the discoveries in quantum physics about the nature of reality and the core of the quantum field, the more we realize that we're talking about ancient texts from India and China, the Upanishads and the Mahabharata and the Vedas and the Sutras of Patanjali and the I Ching pretty much have already talked about for 4,000 to 5,000 years the concepts that we're just now, quote, discovering in quantum physics. And as we'll see, most of the Nobel Prize-winning quantum physicists in the world who have developed or discovered these theories in the quantum field have been students of the ancient texts, something you wouldn't expect. But yep, every single one of them have delved into the past to see what is being said about the nature of reality. Look at this. I go into the Upanishads to ask questions. Niels Bohr, Nobel Prize-winning physicist. Einstein. When I read the Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created this universe, everything else seems so superfluous. Schrödinger himself. The multiplicity is only apparent. This is the doctrine of the Upanishads, and not of the Upanishads only. The mystical experience of the union with God regularly leads to this view, unless strong prejudices stand in the way. Heisenberg. After the conversations about Indian philosophy, some of the ideas of quantum physics that had seemed so crazy suddenly made much more sense. The grandest physicists in the world, in history, have delved in the same place. Science cannot solve the ultimate mystery of nature, and that is because, in the last analysis, we ourselves are a part of the mystery that we are trying to solve. Essentially, we're trying to find out the deepest part of where reality comes from, and it comes from us. The deepest part of us. According to the quantum field, when you break the component parts of what appears to be this reality into smaller and smaller parts to see what everything is made of, as we've discussed many times before, where my body is made of cells, those are made of chemical compounds, those are made of atoms, and atoms are made of component parts, protons, electrons, and neutrons. And as we proceed with bigger and bigger atom smashers to smash these little tiny parts open to see what they're made of, protons and neutrons and electrons are smashed and create quarks and charms and hadrons and leptons, and keep breaking them open until finally at the core of everything there's nothing there except energy in a state of resonance, forming what's called standing waves. And standing waves are a repetitive oscillation that looks like it's solid because it's moving so fast and your eye can't tell. So it looks like patterns are forming in the quantum field. The resonance is forming patterns. And if we start to manage what thought we're holding about what the picture of reality is, and we can shift the quantum field. From a standpoint of physics, of quantum physics, it's a no-brainer. This is how reality works. A scientific community agrees with the Vedas that reality as we know it is a projection of consciousness. Consciousness is primary. And the fluctuations and the resonance fields that we see at the core of the quantum field is consciousness itself, which makes up most of reality that we see, the space between things. When they smash these atomic particles open and they're looking at the spin patterns where things spin out, they're seeing weird fluctuations that shouldn't be there. And the only reason there could be a fluctuation is because there's another particle creating its own resonance that's affecting the resonance that you see. If it's true, there's new particles that nobody's discovered before, a deeper layer of reality that could change physics as we know it. The key point here is, from the standpoint of the Vedas, the Sutras of Patanjali, 4,000-year-old text in Sanskrit. This is deeply discussed, that if we believe that reality is made of ever smaller parts, and we start to smash things apart to see what those parts are. And then we break those parts open and look to see if they're smaller parts. If we believe in our worldview and the collective unconscious mind that the world is made of parts, then the universe will dish up as many parts as we need to find. The universe has an infinite storehouse of ever smaller and smaller and smaller particles. And so the deeper you will go down that rabbit hole, the more reality will create whatever you're expecting to see. Consciousness is jumping to a conclusion that this is what reality looks like. And as long as I believe that, this is what I get. The universe is looking for a path of least resistance to create whatever it is that you want. So unconsciously, you're expecting it to be this way. That's the path of least resistance you just supplied to the universe, and it falls down that rabbit hole and pops this up for you. What we normally see in physics is the four great forces right now is what's recognized. Electromagnetism, like we were in high school, the total electromagnetic spectrum, everything is made of electromagnetism and photons. But what they didn't teach us is that sound waves are not on the electromagnetic spectrum. That it's the big yin-yang of science, right? The big yin-yang of science is electromagnetism on this side and sound frequencies on this side. Sound is not electromagnetic. It's pure energy moving through a medium. Air molecules with my voice right now. Sound travels through water 5 times better than air and travels through a solid 5 times better than water. This is 70% water, perfect medium for transmitting sound. And my bone skeletal structure is the solid, so it travels through that even better. But when you're outside of the realm of sound at 20 to 20,000 hertz, that fundamental force is still there, going ever lower frequencies and ever higher frequencies. Higher than 20,000 hertz is not sound, but it's still there. Lower than 20 hertz is still there, but it's not called sound. We actually have a mechanism for processing below 20 hertz. That's vibration sense, separate from hearing. And that sense is 0.3 to 500 hertz. So below 0.3 hertz, those vibrations still get slower and slower and slower. They won't have a name for it. It's not sound, it's not vibration anymore. It's something else. It's a force of the universe. And as those frequencies get lower and larger amplitudes of the wave, eventually it's my feeling that this is what we call gravity waves. Gravity waves are pure energy moving through the medium of dark matter, which is consciousness itself, according to the Vedas. So these massive ripples flowing through the universe, ripples in space-time, have a crest-to-crest wave that in some cases are hundreds of millions of light years from crest to crest. And the speed of that sound wave is hundreds of millions of years. So it's imperceptible to us. It looks like it's frozen and not moving. But once again, it's relativity. It's, in this case, relativity of size and time. If my lifespan is, 85 years, and ripple to ripple in space-time is 100 million years, it looks frozen to me like it's not moving. But that's just my perception, my relativity in time and space. Everything is kind of like that way. Things are moving, things are vibrating. Everything is in a state of resonance, from the smallest of the possible small to the largest and slowest of the possible large and slow. I'm someplace stuck in the middle of all that, and my perceptions related to my lifespan can only perceive frequencies resonating within a certain range of time and space. Outside of those ranges, from my perspective, they seem to be frozen and not moving, but that's not true. It's all a perspective issue. Global consciousness in the scientific community is spending more and more and more of its time contemplating what is the nature of reality. And the conclusions that are coming up are completely and totally aligned with what's been said in the most ancient texts on the planet. The Vedas and the Upanishads and I Ching, and the ancients had the answers to these things already by only consulting the deep inside of themselves, where all the answers truly are. When we stopped perfecting the machinery inside of our own consciousness through advanced techniques of meditation and developing this machinery, when we stopped that, we externalized everything. Instead of developing this machine, we developed external machines made of silicone and computers and internets and all the rest, and scientific equipment and larger atom smashers. So all of our attention went outside of ourselves to find the secrets of the universe, when in reality, our ancients found those same exact secrets by going inside and developing this machine. So part of our task here is to go back and develop this machine and find out and be able to trust the truth that you find there, because we've been sort of hoodwinked and hypnotized into believing that it can't be believed unless we use this, quote, scientific method, which means double-blind studies. And unfortunately, the quantum field, from the most famous Nobel Prize-winning physicists on the planet, have shown repeatedly that the act of observing changes the observed. So there goes double-blind studies right out the window, because the act of setting up an experiment changes what the experiment is going to show. And me observing the experiment happening is changing it as well. Sort of a cosmic biofeedback. I change what I look at. Quantum mechanics says that whether an electron behaves as particle or wave depends on how it is observed. So my observation changes things in the quantum field of reality. In the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, all possible realities exist, but humans perceive just one. It's the concept I've talked about before, about the fact that the next moment for now is a doorway that opens into an infinite number of corridors of every possible outcome of what the next moment could possibly be in the mind of the Godhood. Anything is possible. And there's an infinite number of renditions of me in this room with you in this particular world that we all agree is what the world is. There's an infinite number of corridors of every possibility of where this next moment could be in my conversation with you. And what that's saying is that we step down the same corridor over and over and over again to flesh this one out. And let's say that I get a cancer death sentence and I've got 6 months to live, and I go deep enough inside myself where I can bypass my thinking mind and the part of me and my personality that exists in time and space, and arrive at the present moment, which is before all of that, and align with my deepest big mind and step into a parallel corridor instead of this one. And that corridor has no cancer. So all of a sudden we have what's in this corridor is called a spontaneous remission. The cancer just disappeared because I stepped into a different corridor reality where there was no cancer for me. We create reality.